imagine it glistening in hot honey sauce. Just think about the crispy, sweet heat. Now it's in your sights. Reach for it. Almost there. Oops, this is a KFC radio commercial. But you can make your picture a reality by getting a Hot Honey Tenders basket.
Also available in Hot Honey, Chicken Family Meals. KFC, it's finger-licking good.
The Point proudly brings you Sean Hannity. One of the most prominent and influential conservative voices in the country, Hannity brings a mix of news, commentary, and guest interviews to expose the truth.
Hating President Trump is their drug in the media. And by the way, to them, it's more addictive than heroin.
Award-winning host Sean Hannity, Tuesday through Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. Sean Hannity on Guam's only news talk superstation, 93.3 The Point. The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 1350 AM, 93.3 FM, and 104.3 HD3.
Another caravan sets off for the U.S. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Hours ahead of schedule, a caravan of Central American migrants has begun walking north from their gathering point in northwestern Honduras, bound for the U.S. southern border.
It's unclear who might be organizing or compelling Central Americans to make this trip, or if the caravan is aware that previous asylum seekers have largely gotten stuck in Mexico. A representative for the U.S. Embassy traveled to the Guatemala border to inform the migrants not to, quote, invest time and money in a journey that is destined to fail.
Fox's Trace Gallagher. The Pentagon has announced it is extending the military mission at the southern border until the end of September. There are about 3,000 active-duty U.S. troops providing support to Border Patrol agents. The stalemate over a border wall continues. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell telling the Senate that walls work.
And when Democrats are ready to re-accept these realities, they can negotiate seriously with the White House and bring it in to this impasse.
But no talks are scheduled now. The partial federal government shutdown stretching into its 25th day. Indiana Republican Congressman Steve King has been stripped of committee assignments in the new Congress over quotes attributed to him about white supremacy. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy saying,
I think it sends clear across the country about how serious the Republican Party believes that all men and women are created equal, that we will fight and make sure that case happens in every shape and form inside this country.
Representative King says Leader McCarthy has made a political decision that, as he says, ignores the truth. A satellite launch from Iran has failed. The country's communications ministry says the rocket failed to reach the speed needed to boost a satellite into orbit. The U.S. claims that satellite would have been used to help with missile guidance in violation of a UN Security Council resolution. This is Fox News.
Docomo Pacific is making the Better Together bundle even better. 2 great services plus more. Get unlimited local calls, SMS, and 20 gigs of data, plus unlimited home internet for $109 a month. Sign up today and get free installation and choose between a free Galaxy S8, S8 Plus, or $100 off select devices. Mobile plus online from Docomo Pacific. Better together. Some conditions apply. See store for details.
There's a reason every day a Guam homeowner is getting a solar system installed by Micronesia Renewable Energy. It's because MRE is the most trusted name in solar. With more solar energy solutions than any other solar company on island, homeowners have a choice to go solar for zero money down or take the path to ownership. Whichever way, it keeps our skies blue and your pockets green. And with the most experienced solar technicians and an energy production guarantee, there are no worries. Call 632-2613 for a free consultation. MRE, the smarter choice.
The accused kidnapper of Wisconsin teenager Jamie Kloss in court Monday.
Jake Thomas Patterson appeared in Barron County Court by video to hear his charges from DA Brian Wright.
2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, maximum sentence on each of those counts, life imprisonment. The count of kidnapping, 40 years. And the count of armed burglary, 15 years.
A criminal complaint says Patterson picked Jamie Kloss to kidnap after he saw her board a school bus. He allegedly killed her parents and dragged her from the home, according to DA Wright.
It doesn't get any more serious than that.
The DA says he expects a jury trial. Patterson's next court date is set for early February. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
3 sheriff's deputies have been shot and wounded in Ector County, Texas, which surrounds Odessa. The gunfire erupting as the deputies were attempting to serve a search warrant. They are all in fair condition, expected to survive, but one person thought to be a suspect has been shot and killed. An armed man who entered a UPS processing facility in Logan Township in southern New Jersey Monday morning and held 2 women hostage for several hours was shot and killed by police as he left the building with his hostages. Police are still investigating, but say the suspect may have had a relationship with one of the women. Confirmation hearings begin in the Senate Judiciary Committee Tuesday for Attorney General designate William Barr. Committee Chairman Senator Chuck Grassley says he expects that Barr will be confirmed.
He ought to be able to get through the Senate like he did 3 other times in his earlier career to be Attorney General and other positions within the H.W. Bush administration. He was approved unanimously.
In his opening statement, Attorney General designate Barr will tell the Judiciary Committee the special counsel investigation should be allowed to play out. Dow futures ahead by more than 160 points. On Monday, the Dow dropped 86 points. The Nasdaq was down 65. The S&P 500 lost 13. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Chili's 3 for Me menu just got bigger. We're giving you more choices for the same great price. For just $15, you can get a beverage, salad, and an entree. First, choose from a refreshing Coca-Cola, iced tea, or Heineken on draft. Then enjoy a house salad and select your choice of a mouth-watering entree, like our half-rack ribs, Cajun chicken pasta, old-timer burger, personal chicken fajitas, or the flavorful margarita flatbread. So hurry in today and enjoy our Chili's 3 for Me menu for just $15. Available for a limited time. Chili's, more life happens here.
Are you not getting paid what you're worth? Or not reaching your full potential at your job? If you're pioneering, adventurous, competitive, love talking to people, and want to earn $100,000 per year, sell cars on U.S. military bases with Military Auto Source. Start on Guam, stay on Guam, or move to Japan or Korea. To see if you qualify, visit maseastasiarecruiting.com. Military Auto Source, helping you reach your full potential.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And if I were to amend that constitutional provision, I would be very tempted to add something like this: the right of the people to keep and bear arms and the right of the people to tune in to Tall Tales every afternoon at 4 p.m. shall not be infringed. Because we speak up here on behalf of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, guns, constitutional rights, political correctness and the absence thereof, and related subjects every day. So as per the lead into the show, if you want to participate in our international radio listening audience, 888-TALK, 888-8255, and of course we're streaming Facebook Live, so you can always chime in here on our Facebook page. Quite often that will get you at least honorable mention here on Tall Tales. So we usually start off the program with something called Zemi Ikotni, which is our backwards multilingual play on words, meaning Meet the Press. And what we do on our version of Meet the Press is we compare the editorials of the 2 newspapers, parse them, dissect them, do a post-mortem on them, and when all that is finished, I will use my correcting blue pencil here and give the winner of the 2 the coveted blue star. And if you listen closely after I announce which editorial receives the blue star, you could probably hear the champagne corks popping in the editorial boardroom of the winning editorial.
There are some editorials I've read lately, and those people that wrote them, they should stop.
They should quit, yeah. And those probably are the ones that got zeros or things like that. Exactly, Michael. So we have a change in personnel today, and it was not brought about by the incipient developing personality cult of the real Joe Cruz.
No.
Who is developing a fan base of his own.
That's right. That's right. I hope that works out for him pretty well. Yeah, I know he had some things to do today. So I'm in here to spell it. And amazingly, I know how to work the buttons in the afternoon, too. Go figure.
All right. Okay.
Holy smokes.
Well, it's pretty complicated, but I have the utmost confidence in you, Michael, to push the right button at the right time.
We can hang on for a couple hours.
And occasionally I need a straight man for some of my outrageous jokes. So
I'm your guy.
Fill that bill also. Okay, so we're going to start out with the Daily News. The title of the editorial, Our View, National Emergency Declaration would be misguided, destructive overreach. And once again, the Daily News starts out in a pretty deep hole here, because when it comes to editorials, we like home cooking here on the island. If I wanted to read the USA Today editorial, I'd probably go online to the USA Today page on the internet. I don't much care for USA Today editorials. They're usually too far to the left for my taste, so I'm not often tempted to do that. But it seems that lately, about once a week, the folks at the Daily News would rather run the USA Today editorial, than cook one up themselves. So I'm not saying it's impossible to get the Blue Star if you run the USA Today editorial instead of a home-baked one, but it's pretty darn hard. So here's what the USA Today says. A day after shutdown talks broke down once again, President Donald Trump threatened to declare a national emergency to circumvent Congress if he can't reach a deal with Democrats to fund his promised border wall. Throughout Trump's successful run for president, he repeatedly promised to build a big and beautiful wall across the southern border that Mexico would pay for. The pledge enthralled his chanting rally-goers and became his signature campaign promise. Then it became his albatross. Mexican leaders made it clear they have no intention of paying for Trump's wall. That left the president in the position of having to secure funding from U.S. taxpayers and to spin an ever-shifting series of nonsensical scenarios for how Mexico would indirectly reimburse America, the most recently involving a yet-to-be-ratified trade deal. Even during 2 years of Republicans controlling the White House and both chambers of Congress, Trump couldn't get major appropriations for the wall. Now, with Democrats in control of the House, he can't get it done even by forcing the longest partial government shutdown in U.S. history, one that has left 800,000 federal workers unpaid and the economy losing an estimated $1 billion a week. Trump is considering declaring a national emergency at the southern border, invoking a 1976 law that other presidents have used to help the country in times of dire need. This approach has its appeal. Government employees would presumably go back to work despite the political impasse. But an national emergency declaration would be a misguided and destructive overreach of executive power. First bullet point, it stretches the definition of emergency. To be sure, drug trafficking and an influx of Central American families seeking asylum are significant problems, but they fall far short of major national security crises and walls, though hardly the, quote, immorality cited by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, are at best a small part of the solution. It would be a dangerous precedent. Would Republicans really want a future Democratic president attempting to bypass the will of Congress by declaring national emergencies on gun violence, climate change, or health care? It would divert, and the third bullet point, it would divert money from other projects. The wall would be paid for by reallocating military construction funding approved by Congress but not yet spent. The way out of this morass is through bipartisan compromise, not by bending the law or the Constitution. Well, a few comments, a few of my own editorial comments here. You know, if most of the mainstream press didn't have Donald Trump to pick on a daily basis, they could probably economize by retiring about half their writers, because about half their content is, let's see what we can say bad about Donald Trump today. The motto in the newsrooms and the editorial boardroom seems to be, if you can't say something bad about Donald Trump, just don't say anything at all. So I don't present myself as being 100% in favor of everything that Donald Trump says. But to contrast that with what the left says, you know, things like where little Johnny, when little Johnny goes to school, where he can pee, and all of the stuff about, you know, the pretending about that a man and two men can constitute a marriage, and on and on and on, and everything that the far left has given us. If the only two choices are that and what Donald Trump says, I'll take Donald Trump in a heartbeat. And I have a feeling that I'm not alone in that feeling, and that's the reason that Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton in the election 2 years ago. So elections have consequences, and we are where we are. We are with Donald Trump right now, because the forces on the left, much of which is located in the mainstream media, pushed its agenda so hard that they created a serious backlash, and now they're kind of stuck with it. And I kind of sit back and chuckle and kind of enjoy it, especially when I read stuff like this, because they have good points here. This editorial could zero in on good points. Now, what that means is the same points that I would make myself. That's the definition of a good point. But here are some of the points that I make. This isn't Donald Trump's fault. This is Congress's fault. In 1976, the Congress gave Donald Trump the key to the in case of emergency break glass case where this magical power is kept. So he doesn't have to break the glass in case of an emergency, because Congress gave him the key and abdicated its own responsibility. Now, American history buffs would remember that one of my favorite presidents, Harry Truman, started this. And this is not why he's my favorite president, one of my favorites. But when the the communist forces of North Korea crossed the 38th parallel and attacked our ally, the Republic of Korea, Harry Truman went to war. He sent, he mobilized troops, he sent troops, he drafted soldiers, he attempted to take over the steel mills as part of the war effort, and he put the country on a war footing. He did everything that you would expect a president to do in a war except for one thing. He never asked Congress for a declaration of war, and Congress went along with it. That was one of the real benchmarks in American imperialism, where we have an imperial presidency where the president can, in effect, declare war at will. So having created that kind of office, primarily because Congress shirks its own responsibility, having done some grave robbing and taken parts from several different graves and put them together, they can't now jump back and say, oh, look, it's the Frankenstein monster, because Congress created it itself, Michael, by abdicating its own responsibilities.
Yeah, that genie will not go back in the bottle.
Probably not. So, yeah, I don't want to see President Trump declare the emergency, the power for which Congress gave to him in 1976. And I kind of agree with some of the points the editorial made here. I wouldn't want to see a national emergency declared so that the Army, United States Army, can go out and collect every single handgun that people have for their self-defense. A good example of using your power to achieve a short-term objective and later on being, as the saying goes, hoist with your own petard, was Harry Reid doing away with the 60-vote majority necessity to confirm Supreme Court justices. He thought he was pretty smart when he did that, but of course he couldn't see Gorsuch and Kavanaugh in the not-so-far distant future. So people in government, like the president, need to remember that politics has its short-term rewards, but it's really a long-term game. So these are the intelligent, articulate things that the USA Today editorial could have said, but they didn't. They were happy enough with just more, let's beat up Trump. So I've got my blue pencil here. I have a feeling I won't be using it on that editorial. More on the shutdown comes from the Guam Daily Post. And the Post says, shutdown could disrupt Guam economy. U.S. transportation security workers who screen air travelers and air traffic controllers are now entering the 4th week of working without pay because of the partial shutdown of the federal government. In some parts of the states, TSA agents are calling in sick. TSA's website was last updated on December 21, 2018, and contains dated information because of the shutdown. Air traffic controllers are still reporting to their jobs, but face the prospect of another payday without pay. Houston's George Bush International Intercontinental Airport closed the security checkpoint in one terminal last weekend due to a shortage of TSA agents to screen passengers, national media reports state. If this problem persists, this eventually could hurt Guam's tourist-reliant economy. Guam officials need to be proactive on how to go about stemming the impact of a possible decrease in Guam-bound air travelers. Even if TSA and air traffic controllers continue to report to work on Guam, the perception to international tourists that airport lines might get longer and air traffic controllers might be short-staffed could dampen their plans to travel. Even if the shutdown is a federal government problem, its impact could ripple through the local economy if air travel is disrupted. And those in charge of tourism and economic development should let the public know what actions they'd take to minimize or cushion the potential damage. Lawsuits have been filed against the U.S. government by unions representing the TSA workers, air traffic controllers, and Customs and Border Protection agents. But as of press time, it's unclear when the shutdown may end. Some of the island's banks have been proactive in announcing loan programs to help government workers survive payless paydays, and we thank them for having that foresight. We do need to hear from Government of Guam officials, however, on what they plan to do if travel and tourism are disrupted. If that happens, Guam's economy and the tens of thousands of jobs in the island's tourism industry could also feel the pain. Well, pretty easy today. We've got a homegrown editorial. It's not really edgy. It's not really hard-hitting, but it is topical. And at least it's written right here on our island. So with the coveted blue star, there it is. It goes to the Guam Daily Post. However, the Guam Daily Post poses a question, and I've gotten on them for this before, posing a question and not suggesting any kind of a potential answer to the question that they pose. So what exactly is it that the local government can do in the face of the shutdown by not our federal government, by our national government, especially when it comes to the transportation aspects of our national government? Maybe send a delegation to Washington to lobby against the federal ban on cockfighting on the island? Would that help? Probably not.
Only if we can ride the chickens.
Maybe so, yeah. So out there in our international radio listening audience, if you have some ideas as to what our local government can do in the face of the shutdown by the national government, please give us a call at 888-8255. Failing that, you're always free to post a comment here on our Facebook page, which I more than likely will read and in complimentary terms. So from there, the next item on the list on our itinerary for today is the card. And in this round, as in this corner, we always start out with a law lecture, Michael. And the reason that we start out with a law lecture is that we talk a lot about Guam law here on Tall Tales. We talk a little bit about national law, the Supreme Court and stuff like that. But I think it would be helpful if our international radio listening audience learned a little bit about the law in some of the states. So every day I do a couple of states. And we're down to Oklahoma and Pennsylvania right now.
It's amazing how different the states are, though, with their laws. And it's not even a regional thing. I mean, you know, two states in the Northeast can have completely different laws regarding a similar situation.
Well,
interesting.
And perhaps the lack of common sense, you'll see as we get into the law lecture, is the one common thread that ties them all together. For instance, in Oregon, one may not bathe without wearing suitable clothing. That is, that which covers one's body from neck to knee. Yeah. You know, I made a wrong mistake. I've already done that. We're in Tennessee and Texas today, so you'll enjoy Texas, Michael.
All right, yeah.
Being a Texan and all.
Absolutely.
And completely understanding the entire Texas idea that everything in Texas is bigger and or better, right?
That's right. And if you come to Texas and kill us, we'll kill you back.
There you go. Okay, so before we get to Texas, we got to do Tennessee. And Tennessee, oh, wait a minute, I did Tennessee yesterday too, and I did Texas. Okay, well, I'm a little bit behind the power curve here today. Let's go from Texas. As a matter of fact, yesterday, the last item on the Texas list was in Mesquite, Texas. It's illegal for children to have unusual haircuts.
Nice.
And I mentioned to the real Joe Cruz that it's good that he wasn't raised in Texas.
True. Yeah. Mesquite, by the way, just outside Dallas.
Yeah.
They're a little funny in Dallas.
Okay, so let's go from Texas to Utah. In Utah, birds have the right of way on all highways.
Nice.
Makes sense.
Nice, yeah.
And in Utah, a husband is responsible for every criminal act committed by his wife while she is in his presence. Okay.
Yeah.
And in Monroe, Utah, daylight must be visible between partners on a dance floor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That takes you back to the movie? Yeah. What is it? Oh, gosh. I'm not a movie guy. I shouldn't have even mentioned it. Oh, the old movie with Patrick Swayze.
Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
That was kind of the whole semblance behind that, right? It was this religious oversight, and they couldn't have any fun.
Probably right. Okay, then we go from Utah to Vermont. In Vermont, women must obtain written permission from their husbands to wear false teeth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, there's a little side note here, and that is that you must be true to your teeth or they'll be false to you.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah. And in Utah, it is illegal to deny the existence of God.
Oh, well, that makes perfect sense.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
And in Utah, it's illegal to whistle underwater.
Yeah, I also think it's a bit impossible.
Well, talk about not having any fun. Can't whistle underwater. What can you do?
Well, that's from the Beehive State.
Okay, so Michael is playing a few bars of Dave Brubeck's Take 5, and then we'll listen to John Gibson for a minute, and then we'll come back to the card. First item on the card is Aperon versus the Vatican.
John Gibson, digging up history. The little boat and the loudmouth who made the D-Day landing possible. It's a saga of a bull-headed boat builder who wouldn't take no for an answer. That story right after this. Are you one of the millions who feel trapped by your Obamacare health insurance? If you are, dump it. President Trump has changed Obamacare mandates, and now you can get the health care insurance you need, not the overpriced ripoff Obama forced you into. Call Amy Yarborough, a licensed health insurance broker. She'll save you money and get you the health insurance you need. Call Amy at 817-914-5835. Amy, 817-914-5835. Now back to my story. When 150,000 American soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy, they came ashore in landing craft built by Andrew Jackson Higgins. But it wasn't because the Navy wanted Higgins' flat-bottom boats. They thought he was just a fishing boat guy from Louisiana, and what did he know? But Higgins fought back. He dressed down the Navy brass, saying, "The Navy doesn't know a darn thing about small boats, but by God, I do." And, oddly enough, he was right. Senator Harry Truman forced a competition, and Higgins' landing craft won. Higgins scaled up his factory from 100 workers to 25,000 and turned out thousands of landing craft. General Dwight Eisenhower said, D-Day wouldn't have been possible without pushy Andrew Higgins and his flat-bottom boats. I'm John Gibson, digging up history.
Cheers to 80 years. It's our 80th anniversary, and the gifts are on us. 80 gift certificates, 8 shopping sprees, 8 staycations, and 1 round-trip flyaway for 2 to Manila. So how do you enter? Calvo's Insurance personal home and auto customers are automatically entered. Non-Calvo's customers may enter by receiving a qualified quote. It's our way of saying thank you for trusting us for the past 80 years. For more details, visit calvos.com/giveaway or call 472-6816. Calvo's Insurance, serving Guam for 80 years.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So here we are back again at the first item on the card, and it's Aperon versus the Vatican. Now, you're probably thinking, why would Archbishop Aperon be fighting with the Vatican. And, well, of course, if we were talking about the court calendar, there has been a case, Apparon versus the Vatican, or is it Vatican versus Apparon? But this is a different Apparon. This is Mark Apparon, Archbishop Apparon's nephew. So we're going to talk about his lawsuit, who he's suing, and you'll want to have your Law and Order notebooks handy, because we're also going to talk a little bit about the Foreign Sovereignties Immunity Act and how it affects this particular matter. So this is an article that was in the Post this morning. 2 days before the Archdiocese of Agana is expected to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy, at least one civil lawsuit was amended and filed in the Superior Court suing the Vatican. Attorney David Lujan, on behalf of Mark Apparon, filed a civil complaint against the Holy See, Archdiocese of Agana, Capuchin Franciscans, and former Guam Archbishop Anthony Apparon. So I guess the part of this could be captioned Apparon versus Apparon, perhaps leading you to think that it's a case of divorce, but it's not, of course. Anthony Apparon is accused of sexually assaulting his nephew, Mark Apparon, in the late 90s during a function at the Archbishop's residence at the Chancery. Mark Apparon alleges he was smoking a cigarette and drinking alcohol inside his uncle's bathroom during a party. He recalls seeing Anthony Apparon in the bathroom and being sexually assaulted by his uncle. The amended complaint filed Monday alleges the Holy See had direct control over the former Guam Archbishop with the power to appoint and remove the Catholic leadership on Guam. The lawsuit refers to a 1985 report on sexual abuse in the Catholic Church entitled "The Problem of Sexual Molestation by Roman Catholic Clergy, meeting the problem in a comprehensive and responsible manner." The 92-page report was released confidentially to U.S. bishops and urged immediate action to address a widespread problem of sex abuse of children in the church, the complaint states. Attorney Delia Lujan Wolf said the report put the Holy See and U.S. archbishops and bishops on notice of sexual abuse in the Catholic Church and recommended that records of alleged sexual abuse or sexual misconduct, as well as records of investigations, should be kept in the secret archives. The complaint alleges the Holy See did not follow or institute the recommendations of the 1985 report. The collective knowledge of child sex abuse in the Catholic Church in the United States also has been supplemented by secret settlements and agreements, individual prosecution of individual perpetrators, and civil lawsuits dating back many decades, all of which were required to be reported to the Holy See, the complaint stated. Lujan Wolf said the Holy See is the overarching parent organization of the Archdiocese of Guam and the Capuchins, and was responsible for appointing Anthony Apparon and keeping him in place even after allegations of sexual abuse against him became publicly known. The Holy See knew or should have known of the rampant sexual abuse of minors on Guam by its employees, including the abuses perpetrated by Apparon upon his nephew, the complaint stated. The plaintiff alleges the defendants took no action and ignored the abuses and covered them up. The lawsuit is the first of more than 200 child sex abuse cases filed on Guam in the last 2 years, naming the Holy See. It's likely to face an uphill battle as the Foreign Sovereignties Immunity Act makes it difficult to pursue litigation against a foreign nation, which the Vatican has been recognized as. Pope Francis, meanwhile, has yet to make a decision on Anthony Apparon's appeal after the former archbishop was found guilty of certain unspecified allegations following a Vatican tribunal that had investigated multiple allegations of sexual abuse filed against him. The judgment banished Apparon from Guam and stripped him of his title. But Anthony Apparon appealed the sentence, prompting the suspension of the imposed penalties until the final resolution. On December 21, 2018, Pope Francis addressed the Vatican Curia, delivering a strong message about sexual abuse. Quote, "Let it be clear that before these abominations, the Church will spare no effort to do all that is necessary to bring justice whoever has committed such crimes," the Pope said. "The Church will never seek to hush up or not take seriously any case." He acknowledged that the Catholic Church made many errors in the past, but promised to make, quote, "past mistakes opportunities for eliminating this scourge," close quote, from the Church and society at large. "It is undeniable that some in the past, out of irresponsibility, disbelief, lack of training, inexperience, or spiritual and human short-sightedness, treated many cases without the seriousness and promptness that was due," he said. "That must never happen again." So that's the story. So of the 200 sexual abuse cases that have been filed so far, most of them name a priest. Some name a priest who was a Boy Scout leader. I think there is a separate suit against the Boy Scouts, against the Capuchins, maybe against one other religious order. So if you got your Law and Order book, notebooks handy, the first thing we need to talk about a little bit is what's called vicarious liability. And vicarious liability is that function of the law that would require sometimes an employer to answer for the misconduct of his employee. I'll give you an example. Let's say that the employer is A and the employee is B. If B commits a tort, a civil wrong, let's say that B, during the time that he's on duty, beats up one of A's customers. Well, if A negligently employed B, negligently supervised B, negligently failed to warn others of B's violent characteristics, it could be that A would be liable along with B for B's misconduct. That's a simple example of vicarious liability. Another fancy Latin term that comes in here is respondeat superior, let the superior respond. So in those cases where one of the victims or one of the alleged victims who alleges that he was molested by a priest, the lawsuit was filed not only against the priest but also against the Archdiocese of Agana on a vicarious liability theory. And if you stop and examine the mechanics of this kind of lawsuit, if it weren't for the vicarious liability, there wouldn't be any lawsuits. First of all, it's very unlikely that a priest is going to have what lawyers call deep pockets. So if a person files a suit against a priest and recovers judgment against the priest is probably not going to have anywhere close to sufficient assets to liquidate that judgment. So suing a priest is probably pretty much a fool's errand, because there isn't going to be any recovery in suing the priest. To further complicate matters in the litigation that currently pens on Guam, many of the priests who committed the molestations are dead. The fact that someone is dead doesn't mean that you can't name him in a lawsuit. And under certain circumstances, recovery could be had against the priest estate. It would depend on how long the priest has been dead. So the fact that there is a good faith allegation that the priest committed misconduct, and then that coupled with a vicarious liability theory could allow the plaintiff in one of these cases to recover from the Archdiocese of Agana. If the Archdiocese of Agana negligently employed, negligently supervised, etc., and those would be the allegations you'd find in the complaint, then the Archdiocese could be liable. Well, the current posture of the case here on Guam appears that the Archdiocese, in most, if not all the cases, is not going to contest vicarious liability. It took some efforts to settle the civil suits with the plaintiffs in these cases, which apparently weren't successful. So tomorrow, or is it Thursday, the Archdiocese is going to declare a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. What happens in a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, notices of claim are published, putting everybody who has a claim against the Archdiocese that he has a limited period of time to file a complaint, to file a claim, 60 days, 90 days, I don't remember how long. And if a claim is not filed, that claim is forever barred. If a claim is filed, then the claim would be settled somehow out of what's called the bankrupt estate. So there would be a trustee in bankruptcy, or quite often, instead of appointing a trustee in bankruptcy, the court would allow the person in charge of the bankrupt to be what is called the debtor in possession. So the debtor in possession gathers all of the assets of the bankrupt estate, and in an agreement with creditors comes up with a plan to pay the debts of the bankrupt. And it's complicated. There are priorities. Some claims have a higher priority than others. But when it's all over, probably everybody gets something out of a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, a Chapter 11 bankruptcy has the advantage that it allows the business to continue in operation. A straight bankruptcy or a litigation bankruptcy, often called a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, means that the trustee or the debtor in possession sells all of the assets of the bankrupt and divides them up amongst the creditors. Well, if you have an ongoing enterprise, the chances of that enterprise continuing to make money for the settlements, is worth considering. Well, the church is an ongoing enterprise, and because it filed Chapter 11, it will be able to continue to collect the money out of the collection plate and however else the church goes about collecting money. The church, if you read the newspapers, the church will be selling some of its real property to include the seminary in Jonia, the former seminary in Jonia, the chancery in Agana Heights, some commercial real property that the church owns, but probably not any of the churches or schools that the church owns. So after that money is sold, then in accordance with the plan that the debtor in possession and the creditors come up with, the proceeds of those sales will be distributed. Now, everything that the debtor in possession does has to be approved by the bankruptcy court. So the debtor in possession does not have a free hand. He has to operate in the best interests of the creditors. So that's where we are now. The those who filed suits against Anthony Apparon himself are not necessarily bound by any settlement negotiations that they don't want to participate in. As far as the vicarious liability, they may very well decide to, well, they're going to have to file their claim in bankruptcy, because if they don't, they just lose it. The bankruptcy also serves as a wall against future claims, because if you have a claim that arose, say, 15 years ago, and you don't file your claim in the bankrupt estate, once the bankruptcy goes on, your claim is gone. So this will give the church a much clearer road to follow in the future. Now, as far as the litigation against individual priests, that litigation could go on. And it's very possible that the 6 people that filed civil suits against Anthony Apparon, although they will be bound by the bankruptcy as far as the archdiocese is concerned, won't be so bound as far as their individual suit against Anthony Apparon. Now, as far as suing the Vatican, once again, what we're talking here is vicarious liability. That because of what the Vatican did, the Holy See, the Pope, did or didn't do, David Lujan's client, Mark Apparon, is alleging that they are liable to Mark Apparon for the misconduct of Apparon. I mentioned at the beginning of this part of the calendar, of the card, the Foreign Sovereignties Immunity Act. So you got your Law and Order notebooks handy. After I listen to a little bit of Dave Brubeck's Take 5, we'll come back and talk about the Foreign Sovereignties Immunities Act.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,500 by calling Family Finance in Hagåtña at 475-4545, Upper Tuon 647-5626, or in Dededo 633-4473. Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959.
So we got just 8 more minutes to that big halftime show that we have every afternoon at 5 o'clock here on Tall Tales. Michael, I don't remember if you've ever been around for our big halftime show.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
pretty exciting. Marching bands, cheerleaders, acrobats.
I'll have to look at all that stuff.
Synchronized card sections up in the grandstand.
Oh, wow. Oh, kind of like the Korean people do.
Yeah.
Nice.
We have a fire eater out there on the field.
Nice.
And the finale of our big halftime show is a barrage of cannon fire.
Very good.
I think you're really going to...
It has to end that way.
Yeah, I think you're going to really enjoy it. Okay, so the Foreign Sovereignties Immunities Act is an act of the United States Congress that kind of picks up on concepts of common law, comedy, perhaps international comedy, etc. You start out with the proposition that a foreign country can't be sued in the courts of the United States. Well, we have modified that by statute, and the statute says that a litigant cannot sue a foreign country in the courts of the United States for a governmental function. But if the foreign country is engaged in a commercial enterprise, then suit will lie. And this is a jurisdictional determination. It would be one of the very first things that's determined after someone files suit against a foreign country. Okay, now the Vatican, the Holy See. The Vatican is what is often referred to as a postage stamp republic. The Vatican is 106 acres. And I can tell you that once upon a time, I walked all the way around the Vatican.
Wow.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to try that with some of the larger countries, but
no.
Vatican, you can do it. And when you talk about walls, if you want to see some walls, 20, 25-foot walls around the Vatican. So I'm waiting for the Pope to join the chorus of criticism against Donald Trump and his wall. Because I think if I worked on it a little bit, I could modify the old people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always good advice.
Yeah. In this case, we'd have to modify it so it's not glass houses, but walled enclaves, right?
Or glass castles.
Something like that, yeah. So because of an agreement called the Treaty of Lateran, I can't remember which pope it was, maybe the 11th, Pius XI, entered into a treaty with Mussolini, who was then the supreme leader of Italy, where he gave up all of the land that was under papal sovereignty, called the Papal States, and as part of the deal was given that 106-acre enclave in downtown Rome, which is recognized by Italy and just about every other country as a sovereign nation. So arguably, the Vatican, which has like maybe 900 residents, it has a ferocious army called the Swiss Guard.
Hey, they're tough.
Yeah, you would never want to get into combat with the Swiss Guards. Arguably, it is as far as the United States is concerned, a foreign country. The United Nations doesn't recognize it as an independent country, which, as far as I'm concerned, advances the standing of the Vatican in my eyes. I have very little use for the United Nations, so this is consistent with just about every other stupid thing they do. So if one were to go about suing the Pope, who is, no question about it, chief of state. He is the functional equivalent of the President of the United States, or a combination of the Prime Minister and Queen of Great Britain, etc. That would be a tough one unless it could make the showing that the Pope and the Holy See, that country, were engaged in commercial activities in the United States. Well, this has been tried, and it hasn't worked. But the reason it hasn't worked is that the leading case, the decision on the leading case held that priests in the United States are not employees of the Pope or the Vatican or the Holy See. So if they're not employees, then what theory of liability could be advanced to hold the Vatican liable for the misconduct of the priests? That's why I spent a little bit of time talking about vicarious liability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No employment relationship, no vicarious liability. Now, the guy that sits over here in that lazy boy, the smart money, a guy that ordinarily knows so much more about what I'm talking about than I do, is going, well, they take their orders from Rome. But a little bit of understanding of the structure of the Catholic Church leads one to believe that the court may have been right. because the power center in the Catholic Church is the diocese or the archdiocese. And the really powerful guys in the church are the bishops and archbishops that run those dioceses and archdioceses. The Pope has a great deal of sacred authority over the bishops and what they do, not that much secular authority. Now, if I sat down with a really sharp pencil, I could probably come up with some pretty good arguments in favor of priests being employees. But right now, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy that big halftime show that we have every afternoon at 5 that Michael hasn't had a chance to partake of just yet. So I'll be back in about 10 minutes.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 1350 AM, 93.3 FM, and 104.3 HD3.
Troubling details in the Kloss kidnapping case. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News.
I will set bail at $5 million.
The judge in Jake Patterson's first court appearance Monday as he was charged with murder and kidnapping. Horrifying details of the case being revealed.
Police say 21-year-old Jake Patterson admitted to killing James and Denise Kloss on October 15th so he can get his hands on their 13-year-old daughter, Jamie. The criminal complaint indicates Patterson blasted through the front door of the Kloss home with a shotgun, killed Jamie's father, James Kloss, in the doorway as he was trying to protect his family. Then Patterson hunted through the house until he found Jamie and her mother, Denise, hiding in the bathtub.
Fox's Matt Finn reports police say Patterson dragged Jamie Kloss out of the house after shooting her mother to death in front of her. The court filing says Patterson just happened to spot Kloss getting on a school bus one morning and then began plotting to take her. The partial federal government shutdown, stretching into a 25th day, seems to be a total impasse with no talks scheduled, and neither the president nor congressional Democrats seemingly ready to budge.
I urge my friend Leader McConnell to allow a vote on the House-passed legislation to reopen the government. It seems to be the only way out right now.
Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer, that measure would fund the closed agencies temporarily. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell again declining. Iowa's Steve King, a 15-year veteran Republican congressman, has been banished from all committee assignments over remarks made about white nationalism and white supremacy.
The Republican Party believes wholeheartedly in our Constitution that all men and women are created equal, and we will stand up for that anytime we see somebody say something different.
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, Congressman King says his remarks were mischaracterized. Iran has tried but failed to launch a satellite which the U.S. said would have been part of a missile guidance system. Iran says the rocket failed to reach the required speed. This is Fox News.
Laddie Stone Entertainment and the stations of Choice Broadcasting invite you to meet the 2019 Miss and Mrs. Curvy Pageant contestants with the official meet and greet on Sunday, January 20th at Icon. Doors open at 6 and it's $15 at the door, and it comes with your first drink. Get to know your favorite curvy contestants with the fabulous fashion show by Figure 8. It's the 2019 Miss and Mrs. Curvy Pageant, brought to you by Pitbull Empire, Figure 8 Boutique, local promos, Sidelines Bar and Grill, The Hive, Bongdozas, and Icon. For more information, check out Laddie Stone Entertainment on Facebook. It's the 2019 Miss and Mrs. Curvy Pageant.
Cheers to 80 years. It's our 80th anniversary and the gifts are on us. 80 gift certificates, 8 shopping sprees, 8 staycations, and 1 round trip flyaway for 2 to Manila. So how do you enter? Calvo's Insurance personal home and auto customers are automatically entered. Non-Calvo's customers may enter by receiving a qualified quote. It's our way of saying thank you for trusting us for the past 80 years. For more details, visit calvos.com/giveaway or call 472-6816. Calvo's Insurance, serving Guam for 80 years.
A crucial vote is coming Tuesday in Britain's parliament that could determine the future of the country's prime minister.
Theresa May pleading with lawmakers to accept her Brexit deal before parliament votes on what has been so far a deeply unpopular agreement. But May says she's now received new assurances from European officials on trade and workers' rights, passing along a letter from EU leaders in a last-ditch effort to win support.
a no-deal Brexit that would cause turbulence for our economy, create barriers to security cooperation, and disrupt people's daily lives.
European leaders are urging British lawmakers to, quote, behave responsibly and accept the deal. But opposition parties have already signaled they'll vote against it. And if the deal is rejected, they'll push for early elections to remove May from power. In London, Greg Balcott, Fox News.
The strike by school teachers in Los Angeles will continue into a second day on Tuesday. No new talks are scheduled. Talks will resume Tuesday in Denver, where public school teachers have scheduled to take a strike vote this weekend. Their contract expires on Friday. 3 sheriff's deputies have been shot in Ector County, Texas. All of them are listed in fair condition. The sheriff says they were trying to execute a search warrant at the time. One suspect has been killed. Another is being sought. President Trump welcoming the national champion Clemson Tigers football team to the White House Monday evening. One problem, because of the government shutdown, he had no food to serve his guests. So the president set out for fast food.
Burger King, Wendy's, and McDonald's. We have Big Macs, we have Quarter Pounders with cheese, we have everything that I like, that you like. And I know no matter what we did, there's nothing you can have that's better than that, right?
Clemson celebrating its second national championship in just 3 years. Dow futures ahead by nearly 160 points after the Dow closed down 86 on Monday. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
There's a reason every day a Guam homeowner is getting a solar system installed by Micronesia Renewable Energy. It's because MRE is the most trusted name in solar. With more solar energy solutions than any other solar company on island, homeowners have a choice to go solar for zero money down or take the path to ownership. Whichever way, it keeps our skies blue and your pockets green. And with the most experienced solar technicians and an energy production guarantee, there are no worries. Call 632-2613 for a free consultation. MRE, the smarter choice.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,500 by calling Family Finance in Hagåtña at 475-4545, Upper Tuon 647-5626, or in Dededo 633-4473. Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959.
How's that for a halftime show, Michael?
Yeah, that's the one with the real cannons.
Yeah. So the real Joe Cruz and I have been kind of anticipating that the folks that put on the Super Bowl are going to want us to come down there and serve as consultants to help them with their halftime show.
Probably so. No,
Yeah.
without question.
Yeah, but
we got to check with Ray. The emails have already arrived, perhaps. And,
probably, yeah.
But you know, Ray, he's a little slow checking.
But if we do it, we have a condition, and that is they'd have to set up a broadcast booth at the station.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it puts us on the map again.
Well, so that we could do tall tales from the Super Bowl. Otherwise, we just wouldn't do it.
No.
Yeah.
You know, we're just, we're not going to just do anything.
All right. So that's our big halftime show. So I think I'll take this opportunity to welcome back our Facebookers.
Welcome back.
So Juanita Machi, as usual, the first person to punch in. Glad to see you, Juanita. Lynn and Vince Paulino, along with Elmore Mo Cotton. Welcome back. And then A. Joe Cruz. No, I don't think that's the real Joe Cruz. I think that's
it's definitely an imposter.
I think it's just a Joe Cruz.
No, this Joe Cruz that's watching on Facebook has hair.
Has hair.
Has hair.
Yeah, let me take a look here. It can't be our Joe Cruz, that's for sure.
No, not with hair. No way.
And Ishmael Velez has a message from Brad. And Brad is locked and bloated, okay? Mo Cotton likes the way the camera placement worked out today. Thank you, Mo. And Mo gave me that dynamite suggestion that I start the program with a reading of the Second Amendment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That was very kind of Mo. Mm-hmm. And Albert Eliasson, Semper Fi, Albert. Joey San Nicolas is here. And we've got Ted O'Guay is here. And let's see, Tom Van Engen. Good afternoon, Senator. Carl Nelson. Carl Nelson asked permission. He says, permission to come aboard the SS Tall Tales.
I don't know. You're a Marine. It would be USS, huh?
Yeah. And if you've never been aboard a ship, when you come aboard, you salute the national ensign, the flag, and you salute the officer of the deck and ask permission to come on board.
That's right. And if he likes you, he'll let you on.
Yeah. If he doesn't like you, he'll probably let you on anyhow. So you may come aboard, Carl Bora Nelson. And then Joe 1010 joined. And then Carl has a comment here. This would be our Carl. Mainstream media, including local internet and print media, have become 100% predictable. I can predict what the editorial stance, headlines, etc. are going to be. So what's the point of digging into them? I would be shocked if 99% of mainstream media outlets published anything unconventional, that is, politically incorrect and fresh. Well, you got a good point, Carl, but of course you know where to go, where to look if you want something that's politically incorrect and fresh. Right, Michael?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, they're listening to it right now.
Absolutely. Prudencio Mano says the House approves billions in foreign aid to countries that despise America and zero funds for the wall. Well, despising America, of course, is the new pastime of the left. If you can't say something really derogatory about the United States, best to keep your mouth shut. And then someone named James Camacho Moylan joined.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Well, I know a guy named Jim Moylan.
Yeah, I've heard the name.
Yeah,
before.
Jim Moylan. But James Camacho Moylan? Yeah. Maybe it's Jim's dad. And Ted Lewis, all the way from Montana. Carl just popped up and said, absolutely, Tall Tale is the home of political incorrectness. Politically incorrect and wearing it like a badge. And here's one for you, Michael. Robert Flannery, everything in Texas is bigger. Everything except their deer. Northern states like Minnesota raise and sell whitetail and mule deer for hunters in Texas.
It's true. For whatever reason, the deer just don't grow very big out on the open plains of Texas.
Probably not much to eat.
No. That could have something to do with it.
Yeah. And Linda Gabriel is here. Tim Rohr is on board. Tim, if I misstated anything about the hierarchy of the Catholic Church, please jump in and help us here. Nate Horn, Dave Duenas, Melissa Salas Akimoto, and Jim Healy is on board. I wonder if that would mean that we are part of Healy's world. I hope so. Elmore Mo Cotton says, missed the sound effects for the law presentation. Had a hard time following the program with that sound, just saying.
Yeah, I had the boxing bill, but I didn't do that one.
Yeah, well, for the Law and Order notebook, you play that that little beep from Law and Order. Yeah.
Let me see if I can find that one. Oh, here, this one.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, so because we didn't cue Mo he probably had a hard time following what I was saying.
Well, see, and Joe translated all of the hotkeys here into Chamorro. I can't read them.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Okay. So, hafte man masang law and order gifino tomorrow?
Opo.
Okay. And then Juanita says, at Kmart, and still have Bob Tall Tales on. Well, good for you, Juanita. That's a dedicated citizen of Tall Tales Nation. Tim Rohr, only a few minutes and already more education about the Catholic Church than most Catholics get in church.
It's true.
Well, bless you, Tim. Jack Haddock, half a day, Tautauguahan, Zanhagunai, half a day, Jack Haddock, Tautau baseball. So, Jack, make sure that you're out there in center field with your glove on. I'm going to hit you a few pop flies after the 7th inning stretch. And Ryan St. Nicholas, our co-worker. Hello, Ryan.
Yeah, brother Ryan.
Yeah, Vincent Pareto. Carl, Tall Tales is the home of... Yeah, I already read that, but I like the sound of it. I'm going to read it again.
It was worth a second read.
Yeah, Tall Tales is the home of political incorrectness. And Tim says, Bob, feel free to read my compliment. Well, thank you, Tim. I guess I'd welcome back everybody, but of course the Facebook provision is going to be here right up until we shut the show down at 6 o'clock, 1800, so feel free to continue to comment. And while you're at it, you might go up to that share button on Facebook there and share Tall Tales with all your friends. Do them a big favor. Let them see how you enjoy yourself every afternoon. Yeah. Okay, then winding up here with Aperon versus the Vatican. It's interesting that David Lujan is undertaking this litigation against the Vatican. As per our discussion, it's going to be a hard uphill fight. But if it's successful, talk about a deep pocket. It's going to certainly be worth...
I just had a question. Do you think that this perhaps is just a strategy on his part to go ahead and get something filed and take his chances? Maybe he doesn't even expect it to go, but I mean, that's kind of
Yeah, well, the way the law business works, the key is something called Rule 11.
Okay.
And Rule 11 of the rules of civil procedure or professional conduct, I can't remember which, state that a lawyer, in simple language, can be disciplined for filing a frivolous complaint.
Right.
So when a lawyer signs a paper, what he is certifying is that he is familiar with the facts and the law underlying the paper that he signed, and that he has a good faith belief that it is a meritorious argument or whatever.
Okay.
Or in some cases, he could also certify that he knows that this is not the current state of the law, but he is bringing this matter before the court to perhaps prompt a change in the law.
Set precedent.
Yeah.
Okay.
And regular Tall Tales listeners know that at least as far as the United States Supreme Court is concerned, it is the upperest house of our Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Supreme Court not only interprets law, it makes law, and if it so desires, it amends the Constitution, finding things in there like Herman's constitutional right to marry Henry and
right.
A woman's absolute right to an abortion, etc. Things that even the most diligent word processing search feature could never find in the Constitution. So that's another angle. So even if the current state of the law suggests that the Vatican would be immune from suit in a case like this, if a lawyer can get past that Rule 11 bottleneck, then he can go ahead and file it. And if you around the law long enough, you realize that there's a certain amount of crapshoot involved. That sometimes legal theories that that guy that sits over there in the lazy boy chair, the guy I call the smart money, would tell you that that legal theory will never go anywhere. Sometimes it does.
Yeah, yeah.
And the reward sometimes can be astronomical.
Yeah, see, and that's what I was thinking. And in asking the question is perhaps, even though he knows going into it that it doesn't have much of a chance, perhaps he's filing it in hopes that it, he'll find a loophole. He'll be able to argue the loophole that will allow him to pursue the case further.
Yeah, it's very possible. Okay, so that's it for Aperon versus the Vatican. The next item on the card here is Joe San Augustine versus the Pacific Daily News. And Joe San Augustine has introduced a Stand Your Ground bill. Yesterday I read the Daily News editorial that was condemnatory of Joe San Augustine's Stand Your Ground bill. We really don't need it. So I should have read the Daily News story that appeared on the 13th of January, but I didn't get to it yesterday, so I'm going to read it now. Provides a little background, and I have Bill 14 here. If anyone has any burning questions about Joe's bill, I would be prepared to answer them. And here's how the story goes. Guam is in for another round of debate on a reintroduced, quote, Stand Your Ground bill, which seeks to expand a person's ability to defend himself, including use of deadly force without first attempting to retreat. Joe San Augustine's renewed proposal, Bill 14, would expand Guam's 5-year-old castle doctrine. Under castle doctrine or castle law, a person is justified in using force without first attempting to retreat if the person is attacked in his or her home. Now, it's interesting that the story here used the phrase his or her home instead of defaulting to their home.
Yes.
Yeah. Which always makes me wonder if I'm dealing with Siamese twins, but even that's politically incorrect. Conjoined twins, right?
Yeah, well, and think about it. With the new expansion of all the genders that we get to be, that may not even be an applicable law anymore, based on the legal definition of what we get to be.
Yeah,
because now I can own a house and I don't have to be a he or a her.
Well, that's where we get back to tall tales being the fundamental repository of political correctness. There are a lot of arguments advanced as to why a person should not rebel against the idea that Herman can marry Henry or that there are more than two sexes, etc.
Right.
And the usual grab is to grab for religion and say, well, it's because of my religion. And I can go along with that. It would fit for me, too. But I go to something even more basic, and that is that I refuse to be put in a position where I must pretend.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't see a whole lot of room in the law or society for pretending. That is, once a kid is beyond the age of believing in Santa Claus, we should probably put pretending aside.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that's the whole reason you and I see eye to eye on this. Is I be what you want to be, but I'm going to treat you like I see you and think of you, and that's just how it's going to be.
And I'm not going to pretend otherwise.
No, I will respect you and all that. Everything's good. We got no problems.
Yeah,
but yeah, so.
So, and this whole pronoun confusion is a fine example of that. So, the real Joe Cruz can't be here today to be the producer for this show.
Right.
They have something else to do.
Yes.
I'd rather hear you run your fingernails over a blackboard than to listen to something like that.
That's a little weird.
Yeah. Okay, so anyhow, getting back to standing your ground. Under this castle doctrine, a person is justified in using force without first attempting to retreat if the person is attacked in his or her home, workplace, or in an occupied vehicle, which is treated as that person's castle. It used to be that the duty to retreat was everywhere except in your home. You didn't have the duty to retreat if you were in your home. but it expanded it to your workplace and your car. But under so-called stand your ground law that St. Augustine proposes, a resident may use deadly force anywhere he or she has a right to be without first attempting to retreat in the face of an attack. This could be walking at the beach or in other public or private places where the victim or potential victim may lawfully be, according to St. Augustine's bill, which is a reincarnation of his Bill 149 during the 34th legislature. Because the new bill has the same language as the original one, the same concerns that law enforcement agencies raised can once again block St. Augustine's bill moving forward. St. Augustine said he hopes that this time around his bill will be presented to senators for a vote after it's duly heard by the public. Therese Terlahi is once again ahead of the same committee that has oversight of the new bill. A number of states have adopted stand your ground laws as an expansion of the Castle Doctrine, and enables the person to be able to defend himself immediately without fear of later prosecution or civil liability for a split-second decision while made in reasonable fear of danger. And to me, this makes pretty good sense. There's an old saying, there's an old police department saying that that if a police officer has to use his firearm in the line of duty and he's called on the carpet for it, his immediate response would be, I would rather be found guilty by 12 than buried by 6.
That's right.
That's the split-second nature of these determinations. Now, this next part of the story, I have to borrow a page from Rush Limbaugh. You know, Rush does the warm-up for Tall Tales.
That's right, yeah.
And I've heard him say this from time to time, talking to Snerdley. And Real Joe Cruz is the functional equivalent of Snerdley.
Snerdley, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So, and this is what Rush would say. You know, I don't like to talk about myself, but this time I have to.
Yeah.
Because this is about me.
That sounds kind of like Ray.
Okay. So the next part of this article says, Attorney Bob Klitzkie.
Hey.
Yeah, that's
all
what
right.
This time I have to, because this is about me.
It's about you. Truly is.
A former senator and Superior Court Judge Pro Tem suggests technical amendments to Bill 14. Klitzkie, host of radio talk show Tall Tales. Now, they did not mention in this story that Tall Tales is the top-rated afternoon FM talk show in the Western Pacific.
No, they probably overlooked that.
Yeah.
As well as overlooking the station that it's on.
Yeah. Or else perhaps they just figured, well, why restate the obvious?
Yeah, everybody knows already.
Yeah.
So,
Klitzkie said the bill's language should make sure that the defensive force used must be, quote, proportional. So he suggests inserting the word proportional every time the phrase, quote, defensive force appears in the bill. For example, on Section 1 of Bill 14, a paragraph should read, the extension of stand your ground contained in this legislation allows a person to, here we go, allows a person to defend themselves.
oh, hey, that covers a lot of ground.
Yeah, a person to defend themselves using, quote, proportional defensive force, not only when at home, workplace, or in an occupied automobile, but also when the person is in a place where he or she has a right to be. So the reason that I think that the word proportional should be inserted there before defensive force is because it's too easy for people to get the idea, well, under this stand your ground law, I can use force if somebody menaces me.
Right.
So imagine a situation, let's say at the beach, and let's say that one of the beachgoers has imbibed a little bit too much alcohol, and he gets into a verbal disagreement with someone who is armed. and the disagreement rises to the level that the drunk pushes the man who is armed.
Right.
That doesn't mean that the person who is armed can haul out his pistol and drill him between the eyes.
That's true. Yeah, that's over excessive.
And if all you knew what was in the bill here, that's kind of implied.
Okay.
The word deadly force is never used in the bill.
Mm-hmm.
Defensive force is. So that's why I think it's so important that this bill say proportional. So if somebody pushes you, you can push him back, but you can't shoot him.
No, and I mean, and at that point you can back off and say, "Hey, I have a weapon. You know,
Much-
leave me alone."
Much better.
You know, at least you've given him a warning at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that was my 2 cents worth on that. And then I went on to say a lot will depend on the educational campaign on the implementation of the law. Someone needs to go through the same little dialogue that you and I just went through, right? And I also mentioned the bill contains typographical errors. Once an English teacher, always.
Yes, okay. There we go.
Yeah, and then a couple of what I think are routine, silly mistakes. The bill has an effective date, and it says that it's effective upon adoption. Well, every bill is effective upon adoption. That's the default. If you want the bill to be effective some other time, then you say this bill shall be effective 30 days after enactment, or on the 1st of January or the 12th of never or something. But if there's no effective date, it's effective midnight the day it becomes enacted. And we go on to Curtis Vandeveld believes that stand your ground bills and castle doctrine are unnecessarily complicate the law of self-defense, which he said has been seemed adequate for the protection of human life. Vandeveld believes that castle doctrine should be repealed. So you get two lawyers commenting on the same bill and they come to opposite results. This kind of reminds me of this little town up in northern Wisconsin, little farm town, and for all of its 100 years of existence, it had never had a lawyer. So then one day a lawyer moved to town, hung out his shingle, etc., told the people of this little town that he'd handle everything from divorces to dog bites. And for the first year, he almost starved to death. People were paying him with milk and eggs and sweet corn and everything else, and he just barely made it. But after he'd been in practice for about 3 years, another lawyer moved to town. 5 years after that second lawyer moved to town, they were both millionaires. Just goes to show you, if you want to get something done, two lawyers.
Two of them, that's right.
Okay, so I suspect this is our Tom.
This is Tom, yep.
Hello, Tom.
How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, great, Tom. Anytime you call in, I'm doing great.
Always good to hear your voice every day.
Thank you, Tom.
Weekends. We miss you on weekends.
Well, I miss Tall Tales. You know, the real Joe Cruz and Jones, by Sunday night, we're climbing the walls, waiting for 4 o'clock Monday afternoon to get back on Tall Tales.
Anyway, here's my take on the castle doctrine deal. I do not like to be forced to retreat before I use deadly force. Because I'll give you a scenario. My family and I will be in the outside kitchen cooking and preparing to eat. Then a drunken idiot comes running towards us with a machete. Is it wrong for us to be forced to retreat into our house because we were not allowed to use deadly force against that idiot that's running towards us with a machete? If we were to be forced by the law to have to retreat into our house, and that drunken idiot is going to chase us all in there, and he's going to stay outside the kitchen and eat all of our food.
That's a really compelling argument, Tom. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but yeah. I hope that Joe San Augustine will include this in his the preparation to introduce this bill. But as far as your question is concerned, Tom, the question here is, what is a person's house? Is his outside kitchen part of his house? I think maybe a good argument lies that it is part of your house, because outside kitchens are attached to the house, right? And you can ordinarily.
But the law is now. The law is your house means the wall and everything inside the wall and inside the door and inside the window. That's what the existing law says. Anything outside of the walls is not considered the house. So right now, without the new bill to expand that Castro Doctrine rule, the outside kitchen is not part of the house. So we do have a duty to retreat the way it is now, the way the law is now, to retreat into the house and lock our door. And the outside kitchen is not part of it.
And in the process, forfeit the barbecue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, once people knew that, that was the proper interpretation of the law, I could see a couple of things happening. The sale of machetes would increase, and cooking in outside kitchens would decrease.
Yeah. So that is why I would like the new bill to expand that. You know, I do not want to have to be forced to retreat. I want to stand my ground and stand to and defend myself and my family against that drunken idiot coming running towards us with a machete.
Well, as usual, Tom, a very well thought out, logical comment. So thanks a lot for calling. I got to take a break for the seventh inning stretch. Good talking to you, Tom.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Bye.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
If I told you that the overall style of managing workers hasn't evolved much in the last 100 years, and it's about to change big time, how would you react? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, that's where we're headed next.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
Well, I just picked up the fungo bat and laid into that ball. Jack Haddock was out there in the outfield.
He did good. He called it.
He got it, yeah. And, you know, Jack is so good at shagging those fly balls, making diving catches to interfere with the batter's Texas leaguer. He is so good out there in the field, and he's a good hitter, too. I was thinking that perhaps we ought to start a Tall Tales baseball team.
That would be cool. I'm good with that.
And Jack could be the player manager.
Okay.
How about Tall Tales Tigers?
There we go.
Yeah.
That's a perfect name.
Yeah, so Jack, you have just been appointed the player manager of the Tall Tales Tigers. So that means we're going to be looking for you every day at that 7th inning stretch. A round of applause for Jack. Okay, so back to Curtis Vandeveld and, you know, the fact that lawyers can often find things to disagree about. Then it's too bad that the real Joe Cruz isn't here right now, because what I'm going to read next isn't about him.
Oh.
So he could do his own Rush Limbaugh imitation.
Oh.
Last year, GPD's chief of police, Joseph Cruz, submitted written testimony strongly objecting to the bill. This is not the real Joseph Cruz, the chief of police, is not the real Joe Cruz. He may be a real Joe Cruz wannabe.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they all want to be.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think since he's no longer the chief of police, I think from now on I'm going to call him Ersatz Joe Cruz.
Oh.
To contrast him with the real Joe Cruz, right?
Yeah. Good call.
Yeah. So Cruz wrote, Ersatz Cruz wrote that stand your ground justification is not needed because there are already laws on Guam that more than allow a law-abiding citizen the legal right to defend himself and his family against unwanted or unprovoked violence. Vandeveld said the Castle Doctrine impedes a person from using deadly force that was previously allowed unless a person enters the residence. Use in yards surrounding the house is not allowed. That's the point that Tom made. This complicates what would be permissible in self-defense before the law. Okay, Law and Order notebooks again. Here's a term that you never hear in polite conversation, curtilage.
Ooh.
Curtilage.
That sounds painful.
Yeah, so it sounds like something you do with a really hot surgical tool, right?
Yeah.
So the curtilage is the area surrounding your dwelling, your yard. That's the curtilage.
Okay.
And under common law, burglary could consist of entering the curtilage with the intent to commit a felony.
Yeah, and that actually, from my experience in the past, where I came from, that's what is supported. In Texas, it is the curtilage. That is where your property starts, and that's where your right to defend yourself starts.
Yeah, well, I got to go back and examine the current state of the law, because Tom mentioned that the Castle Doctrine only applies inside the four walls, so apparently it obliterated the safe haven created by the curtilage of a person's dwelling. So if that's the case, that's another reason to modify this statute. Vandeveld anticipated such laws would accelerate the number of wrongful deaths, which the testimonial record shows has been the result gathered by empirical study. These laws are lengthy and complicated, and the result is that people misunderstand their rights. Yeah. And end up using force when not allowed or necessary. GPD's Ersatz Cruz said the bill would appear to be a, quote, recipe for increased violence, given recent statutory easing of access to concealed firearms on Guam. While GPD supports Second Amendment rights, Cruz wrote that a cursory view of the effects of stand your ground laws across the country indicate that such laws appear to undermine public safety and increase overall homicide rates. Deputy Attorney General, Chief Prosecutor Joseph McDonald, in April 20 written testimony, also told the legislature that opponents of stand your ground laws, including the American Bar Association, believe that the law leads to more homicides, is unevenly applied, and may tend to adverse results for minority groups. Wow, That's pretty important.
Yeah, it is.
If you can't get identity politics into your position, why should anyone pay any attention to it? Nationally, stand your ground proponents are advocates of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, he said. Well, that's where we are here. The basic pro-stand your ground argument is that law-abiding citizens must be afforded the right to defend themselves with deadly force if necessary, wherever they may stand, McDonald wrote. Public Defender Service Corporation Director Stephen Hattori last year also cited the American Bar Association's National Task Force findings. The task force recommended against using stand-your-ground statutes because research seemed to indicate that such laws did not reduce theft, burglary, or assault, and that states with stand-your-ground laws have higher homicide rates. Now, there's a nice straw man fallacy here that I addressed when I talked about the Daily News editorial. Stand-your-ground laws did not reduce theft, burglary, or assault. I don't think anyone would assume that that's the case.
Right.
The fact that that a person doesn't have to retreat if he's confronted with aggressive behavior wouldn't seem to have much effect on assault, burglary, or theft. Certainly not on burglary, because
no,
that's a stealth crime.
I was going to say, yeah, you're not even there when you're being burgled.
Yeah. So, and the Daily News kind of picked up on that same idea. And the Daily News wound up their punchline in their editorial was, stand your ground laws will not make us safer. So I thought it was necessary to examine the word us, just exactly who is us. Now, if I were a person that was confronted with aggressive behavior, let's take Tom's example, right? And I was armed, and I shot the machete wielder. It would make me safer. It would make my family who's out there in the outside kitchen safer. It would make our barbecue safer, but it probably wouldn't do anything for the Jones family down the street.
Right.
So the us in the editorial was meant to mean society in general.
Okay, yeah.
So maybe stand your ground laws don't make society in general any safer, but they do make people who are confronted with aggressive behavior safer.
That's right, yeah.
And I would think that ought to be the point. It ought to be more victim-centered than some sort of a kumbaya social benefit for everyone. However, I did suggest that there could be a general societal benefit. It takes a little imagination to figure it out, but nowadays that we have a must-issue law for our concealed firearms IDs, that is that a person who's eligible and submits the necessary papers must be issued a concealed firearms ID. In the past, it was may be issued.
Oh, okay.
And it was up to the discretion of the chief of police. Now we're a must-issue jurisdiction. So let's say that that more than half of the population takes advantage of this statute, and more than half the population is carrying a concealed firearm. And this fact becomes known amongst the miscreants in our community. It might tend to improve the overall safety of everybody else.
It certainly will make those other guys think twice.
Because the guy who's thinking, well, I'm gonna knock that lady down and take her purse or do something else, or I'm going to interrupt this beach party with my machete. If he says, the odds are better than even that lady has a gun in her purse, or that those guys have a gun underneath the barbecue grill, maybe I better find something else to do with my spare time.
That's right. That's right.
It takes a lot of imagination to get to that point. I don't know that it's even possible. While there are concerns about adding stand your ground to Guam's existing castle law, others spoke on the bill, see the need to improve Guam's castle doctrine signed in 2014. Hattori said last year that Guam's castle doctrine could extend the definition of the castle, for example, to the living area that includes one's lanai, porch, or outside kitchen.
Okay, yeah.
He doesn't mention Tom's name here, but
Yeah.
it could also limit the use of defensive force against persons who are fleeing from a home, occupied vehicle, or place of employment. And that's a good suggestion because yesterday somebody asked if in fact, I was talking with Ray. You probably remember the conversation. Ray asked if I remembered any situation where someone used force in defending himself without retreating.
Right.
And I said, I do, but I can't remember the details. Then he mentioned the lady who got tired of hearing the dogs barking and fired into the boonies and killed somebody. Yeah. Well, I finally remembered the incident that I mentioned to Ray. And what happened was, I don't remember the names, but there was an attempted burglary. The homeowner surprised the burglar. The burglar took off and ran.
Mm-hmm.
The homeowner chased him and shot him dead.
Yep.
And believe it or not, the Attorney General did not charge that as a crime.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty hard to make an argument that someone who's running away would require the use of deadly force. And as I read Joe St. Augustine's bill, that would still be the law.
Right.
Yeah. You don't have the ability to shoot somebody who's escaping, even if you're an airport police officer and the person you're chasing is riding a motorcycle. You still can't shoot at him. Hattori said this week that his office will submit testimony when the legislature requests comments on the reintroduced bill. Vandevelde said there are many issues about relief from civil suit that can and should be addressed and are long overdue correction. The use of excessive force by anyone, including law enforcement officers, in the performance of lawful duties should be actionable, and the government should waive sovereign immunity for such actions up to $750,000, as well as present negligent limits of $300,000 set many years ago. That's strange. The use of excessive force by anyone, including law enforcement officers, in the performance of their lawful duties should be actionable. Okay, so we're coming up here in the home stretch. I think I can finish up the castle doctrine before Michael plays Ravel's Bolero, and we bring another exciting episode of Tall Tales, absent the real Joe Cruz, to a close today. And by the way, we're going to have an important personnel announcement this week, so make sure you stay tuned to pick up on that.
Docomo Pacific is making the Better Together bundle even better. 2 great services plus more. Get unlimited local calls, SMS, and 20 gigs of data, plus unlimited home internet for $109 a month. Sign up today and get free installation and choose between a free Galaxy S8, S8 Plus, or $100 off select devices. Mobile plus online from Docomo Pacific. Better together. Some conditions apply. See store for details.
Chili's 3 for Me menu just got bigger. We're giving you more choices for the same great price. For just $15, you can get a beverage, salad, and an entree. First, choose from a refreshing Coca-Cola, iced tea, or Heineken on draft. Then enjoy a house salad and select your choice of a mouth-watering entree, like our half-rack ribs, Cajun chicken pasta, old-timer burger, personal chicken fajitas, or the flavorful margarita flatbread. So hurry in today and enjoy our Chili's 3 for Me menu for just $15. Available for a limited time. Chili's, more life happens here.
And we're heading down the home stretch here on Tall Tales. Just about 7 more minutes, and Michael's going to be playing Ravel's Bolero, wrapping up another episode of Tall Tales. Interesting that Attorney Curtis Vandeveld mentioned the Claims Act and sovereign immunity, because a couple days ago I gave a 0 to the Daily News on their editorial stance on 2 Claims Act matters that they handled. And I'd like to explain that, but I got Louie on the line here, and since I've only got 7 minutes to go, I better pick up the phone and talk to Louie. How are you doing?
Real good, Bobby. I'll make this real quick. Drawing your memory here and your well-read status. If I remember correctly, last year there was a case that was mentioned in a newspaper where somebody was charged in court, and defense said it was going to use Castle Doctrine as the defense. I never saw a follow-up article indicating what happened with that case. And what I found curious about the story is the idea that our Castle Doctrine law says if the elements apply, the person cannot be arrested nor charged. So I thought it was a strange juxtaposition that the defense was going to claim Castle Doctrine because if the elements actually applied, the person never should have been arrested. Did you ever follow that case to completion, Bob?
I don't even remember it, Louis, but I could comment on the points that you raise. Starting out with the proposition that the current Castle Doctrine tells a police officer when he cannot make an arrest, etc. I wonder about the constitutionality of that there's a potential separation of powers there, because if there is probable cause to believe that the law has been broken and that the person that you're dealing with broke the law, then the police officer can make a warrantless arrest if that law was a felony. So it gets into the police officer's judgment, and I think that a statute telling a police officer that he can't arrest if the Castle Doctrine elements are present kind of is a judicial invasion of the executive power and empowers the police officer to invade the judicial power. Scraping that aside, let's say that the police officer, number one, makes a mistake and mischaracterizes the action of the defendant, or number two, doesn't understand the nuances of the Castle Doctrine and the doctrine of arrest, or number three, just doesn't care. Figures I'm going to arrest this guy and let the court sort it out. So when the once the person has been charged and arraigned, then defense counsel can make a motion, and he can raise the Castle Doctrine defense at that time, and he wouldn't be barred from raising it because the police officer didn't apply it at the time of the arrest. So in short, the fact that the police officer arrested is not inconsistent with someone defending based on the Castle Doctrine in a criminal case. Does that make sense, Louis?
All of those points are well taken. They make perfect sense. So it would seem to me the implication of your analysis is that the Castle Doctrine law as it stands should be revised to take those things in consideration, because if for nothing else, it might seem to give a false sense of protection to the citizens that they don't really have, i.e. freedom from arrest in those particulars.
Well, this false sense of protection, I think, is the major flaw in the whole idea, and that's why I say an educational campaign is really important if it becomes law.
Yes, yes. Well, Castle Doctrine is law now. Of course, you want to have an educational program if we're talking about stand your ground, but it would sound from your analysis we need an education program now just on Castle Doctrine as it's written.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Louis.
Thanks for the call, Bob.
Yeah, thanks for calling. Good talking to you, Louis. So whenever a senator attempts to make a dramatic change in the law, and that's what this is, absent any sort of reason for bringing it forward, he has a heavy burden to carry. What I would call a precipitating event. In the absence of a precipitating event, and in the absence of any consciousness raising on the part of the proponent of a dramatic change, he carries a heavy burden. First of all, if left to their own devices, most humans are resistant to change. When it comes to firearms, most people, there are people in our community that are what I would call gunners, that own guns, shoot guns, et cetera, really like the first part of Tall Tales. But then there are people that abhor guns. And unless something can be done to reach those people before the bill is introduced, the proponent of that bill has a very heavy burden. Now, that burden, of course, was lightened somewhat by Tall Tales picking it up and carrying it around a little bit this afternoon, but more is probably going to be required. I don't think that I'm in a position to do it. I'll probably talk about this a little bit tomorrow, but tomorrow we're going to get into the worthiness of Kelly Marsh versus worthiness. So that's going to be pretty interesting. You want to be sure you tune in for that. See you tomorrow.
The shutdown reaches day 25. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. No talks scheduled between the president and Democrats.